Hello, lovies. It's your Auntie Lisa, the cool aunt, the non-judgmental aunt, the aunt you can tell anything to. Now, I've learned some life lessons, some of them the hard way. Let's find out what life lessons we have today with Auntie Lisa's Life Lessons. Hello, my lovies. Welcome to Auntie Lisa's Life Lessons. So nice to have you with me today. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you're doing things that bring you joy and happiness. And usually that means your hobbies. For some people, their work brings them joy and happiness. Mine does. I love my job. But the things that bring me the most joy and the most happiness are my hobbies. And I told you I was going to discuss these with you. And so here we go. I'm doing one of my hobbies right now, which is crochet. I love to crochet. Creating something from nothing, pretty much. You've got yarn, just this big old ball of yarn, and you can create anything you can think of from it, from toys to blankets to garments. It doesn't matter. Just all you need is a pattern and some creativity and you're good to go. So crochet is one of my hobbies, and I have so many more. One of the things about hobbies that I think people need to remember is that you don't need to be good at your hobby to enjoy it and to partake in it. For example, one of my hobbies is painting. And I'm not talking about painting walls like those behind me. I'm talking about painting. I like to get a blank canvas and paint. I am by no means a good painter. I'm really not, but I love it so. I love taking, again, something that has nothing, a blank canvas, and turning it into something else. I've got hanging in my house several paintings I've done. Are they good? Am I proud of them? You bet your bippy, because I did that. So that's another one of my hobbies. I love to cross stitch, but your Auntie Lisa is getting older and older as the days go on. And unfortunately, I have found that where cross stitch is concerned, having bifocals and trifocals, it's tough because for me, I'm very nearsighted. And when you're trying to do cross stitch, the holes are so tiny. And so I will end up doing this so that I can see better because I can't see at the regular length away, even with my bifocals. So I don't get to participate in that as much as I would like to, or do the things that I would like to do, because I can't get as down to the tiny, tiny details. But I used to, excuse me, I'm about to cough. I used to even design my own cross-stitch patterns and could do things that looked like oil paintings and were so beautiful. I just can't get that close anymore because my eyes can't do it. Diet Coke should be considered a hobby of mine, but I think it's more of an addiction than a hobby. Another hobby, podcasting. Duh, look at what we're doing right now. I do this podcast. I sometimes help my friend Todd out with one of his many podcasts. My husband and I do YouTube videos for our reselling business. So I love podcasting. Reading, huge hobby. You give me a book and some quiet time. Yeah. And I've been that way all my life. There are people who know me from when I was in high school, in school, that will still refer to me as Wasn't she that bookworm? Yes, yes, that's what I was. A bookworm, a nerd, a geek, but I love it. That's why I love going to libraries so much. Reselling is a hobby, but it's also a business. So can it be considered a hobby? I don't know. My husband and I have a reselling business, and I love it. I love working at it. I love going and finding the treasures. I love selling the treasures. I love finding the right person for the treasures that I found. So it's a big hobby. I like to make jewelry. Not necessarily really good at it, but I like to do it. You should see my jewelry making supplies. I have so many supplies because I've got so many ideas percolating that I have to do, but I haven't gotten around to doing them. Sorting jewelry is another hobby, and you're like, sorting jewelry? You ever seen at thrift stores these jars that are filled with jewelry? I love getting those and pulling it out and sorting it. You know, there's the necklaces and the earrings. Can I find the matches for the earrings and bracelets? And will this fit me? Will this not fit me? Is this silver? Is this gold? Is this that? I love it. I love touching jewelry, and I have loved this since I was a child. I remember going in my grandmother's jewelry box and pulling out all of her rhinestone jewelry. She had typical 1950s and 40s rhinestone jewelry, and I loved it. I thought it was the most beautiful, most glamorous stuff I've ever seen in my life. And I still like to get a hold of rhinestone jewelry because it makes me remember that. Another hobby I have is crafting in general. We've mentioned the painting, we've mentioned the crochet, we mentioned the cross stitch. Crafting in general, I will take a piece of wood and turn it into something else. If I can create, I'm happy. Uh, I'm writing a cookbook. Yes, your Auntie Lisa, who really isn't the best cook in the world, is writing a cookbook. I'm taking the recipes that my grandmother had, and my mom, my sister, and myself, and all of our family, and I'm putting them into a cookbook to share with the family. And it's a bit of an activity because not only do you have to type up the recipe and do the things for the recipe, but you also have to make it so you can get the photos, because photos are needed for the recipes. You know, what does it look like and all this. And in that process, I have found that some of the recipes my grandmother had don't work for today's ingredients. And weren't ever written down properly. For example, my grandmother has a recipe for donuts. That is, add enough flour. Add enough flour. How much is enough flour, Grandma? So I'm sitting there trying to figure this out while I'm writing this cookbook. Sci-fi and geek conventions. I love a Comic-Con. Y'all, there's just nothing as much fun as going crowded arenas and convention centers with all these different symposiums and workshops and topics being discussed and people in cosplay and vendors selling really cool neat geeky things and authors there selling their books and signing them. And oh, then you get the possibility of taking pictures with the people that you know admire and are fans of. And oh, just love me conventions. Met Stan Lee. If you don't know who Stan Lee is, number one, are you sure you're related to me? But he was one of the creators and masterminds behind Marvel Comics, and Spider-Man specifically is the one that I always associate him with because Spidey is my favorite comic book. Um, but I got to meet Stan Lee once. And I didn't pay to have my picture taken with him or anything like that. That wasn't as important to me as it was for my son, because my son had even done a report on Stan Lee in school because he knew he also looked up to Stan Lee. So as they're going in and he's doing the signatures and having the pictures taken and everything, I say to him, I say, Mr. Lee, I just want to thank you. You're a hero for my entire family. And he looks at me and he goes, Yes, I am. So it was one of my favorite memories. He's just that cocky guy, and I loved it. Uh, Movies, huge, huge, huge hobby of mine. I love movies. I once had one of my bosses recently ask me how I could remember all these little details from movies. It's because I watch them so much. I will watch the same movie over and over again if I enjoyed it, only to pick up some of the things that I didn't see the first time. Listening to music, I've said this before and I will say this again many times. As long as my hearing holds out and I can listen to music, I will always have that feeling that you get when you first meet someone and you're first starting to fall in love. There's a certain feeling that's kind of in the center of your chest and it fills you up and it feels so wonderful. That feeling of first love, new love, right? I get that every time I listen to certain bands, every time I allow myself just to become one with music. That feeling comes back. You just have to allow yourself to be taken over by the music. And then that feeling of falling in love is right there. Ah, nothing like it. Nothing like it. I like to shop. That kind of goes along with some other of my hobbies like reselling. No, but I like to shop. Shopping's fun. Nice hobby. I don't like to spend so much money, but it's a nice hobby. Photography, huge, huge hobby of mine. Um, I consider myself to be an amateur photographer and artist. I've got some beautiful prints of some stuff I've done that makes me feel good. And I've even when a friend contacts me and says, "Will you please take these pictures for me?" That makes me feel good. So photography is a huge hobby of mine. So is writing poetry and stories. I don't do it as often as I should, but I have an entire collection of my short stories and some poems. I like to sing. I'm not good at it anymore, but I like to sing. So singing is a hobby. Playing the clarinet. When I was in high school, when I was in, school, I played the clarinet in a band. And I loved playing the clarinet, but hated being in the band. And that's really hard to explain the whys and the wherefores, and I'm not going to go into it so much, but I didn't like the way that we were made to the way we were made to feel about ourselves in the band. But I loved to play my clarinet. I loved that. I loved making music. We're going back to music, right? So after high school, because I had such a bad experience in band, I put my clarinet up. I sold my clarinet. I was like, I'm done. Not touching it again. Well, recently I've gotten a new one. I went out and I found a used one and I got it play conditioned. And I go downstairs to my little hidey hole in the basement and I will play that clarinet. I've got to relearn a lot of stuff. It's been, I want to say, what is this? It's been about 40 years since I put it up. Oh my God. Well, maybe not 40 years, but getting close to 40 years since I put it away. It's been about 35 years. So yeah, gotta get back into that. Gotta reteach myself some of the fingering that goes with it. But been playing the clarinet a lot and I'm enjoying it. Wine. Wine is a hobby of your Auntie Lisa's. I and it's not just drinking the wine, okay? Although drinking the wine could be considered a hobby too. What do you think, Benny? Drinking wine can be considered a hobby, but wine itself is a hobby. I have a wine journal. Every time I try a new wine, I like to get the label and put it in my wine journal and describe, how the wine tasted. I am by no means an expert at all. I mean, I have trouble spending more than $20 a bottle for wine. It just, I'm cheap. I'm so cheap, y'all. But I do enjoy it. And I do enjoy trying different kinds. And I enjoy the discovery and discovering what I like and what is my favorite. So wine is definitely a hobby. Let's see, what else do I have as a hobby? Gardening. I'm horrible at it. I kill plants. I can't get them to grow properly, but I love it. I love putting my hands in the dirt and hoping something comes up. Hoping something comes up. Learning about history, especially Tudor history. And I mentioned this in a prior podcast how much I love Henry VIII and his six wives, and really loved to study that particular section of history. Um, Favorite wife would have to be Anne of Cleves. Anne of Cleves definitely, definitely was my favorite wife of his, followed by Catherine Parr. Catherine Parr was one of the first feminists, but don't get me started on that. As I said, it's a hobby of mine, and I will talk your ear off about the six wives of Henry VIII. And not everybody is as interested in it as I am, so I try not to get too deep into it with other people. Let's see, what else is a hobby of mine? Baking. I love to bake. Love to bake. It's part of the reason why my fanny is as wide as it is. It's because I do love to bake. It's so much fun. Again, creating something from ingredients that are nowhere near what it becomes, and there, you mix a little bit of egg, some butter, flour, and cocoa, and you get brownies. Oh, or chocolate chip cookies. Or getting even more elaborate and making cakes and decorating cakes. And I am horrible, horrible at decorating cakes. I just don't have the hand strength or the coordination to do it. But I love to try. And as long as it tastes good, that's the important part. I think one of these days I should try out for Nailed It. Because that's pretty much what my cakes end up looking like, is the ones that are on Nailed It. And finally, another hobby of mine, making lists. And I will do that until the day I die, I promise you. Do you have hobbies? What are your hobbies? And remember, you don't have to be good at it. A lot of these that I've mentioned today, I literally suck at, but I love doing them. And that's the important thing. Johnny Depp likes to paint pictures of elephants. Is he good at it? I can tell they're elephants, but he is by no means a Dutch master of painting. You know what I mean? But that's the joy of hobbies. You don't have to be good. You just do, and you enjoy. and you broaden your horizons. My son has two hobbies: playing video games, and he has started doing some metal detecting. Recently, we taught him to fish, and we're hoping that takes off as a hobby too. But if it's not video games, he's not really interested. And I'm sitting there going, I have so many. I have over 30 hobbies. How can you just have one? There's so many things to do, so many things to learn, so many things to experience. And I hope you have those hobbies that you get to do too. Tell me about them. Send me an email, AuntieLisa'sLifeLessons@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this podcast with your friends, and just, I don't know, tell me what you like to do, and whether you're really good at your hobby or whether you're kind of at your hobby. I'm really good at crocheting, not so good at painting. Remember our mantra, which is, as always, be bold, be brave, be unstoppable, and I love you just the way you are. Until next time, bye.